Hi, and welcome to episode 15 of the Give Me a Crown podcast. Before I get into the show, I just wanted to say that my heart goes out to anyone that's been affected by the weekend's tragedies in Paris and any other tragedies going on around the world. I don't understand violence. It completely baffles me, and I hope that if you've been affected, then you're getting the love and support that you need, and know that people all over the world are thinking about you. So, my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown, across the internet, and I want to say thank you for all the wonderful feedback that I got after last week's episode where I spoke about double-pointed needles. It prompted a lot of chatter in the Give Me a Crown Ravelry group, and it was brought to my attention that the new Knit Pro Zing double-pointed needles are quite a bit cheaper than the carbons, and so I'm looking forward to giving those a try when I can next convince myself that I need some new DPNs. I had mentioned that I would talk a bit about some iPad apps for reading charts, but I haven't had a chance to play with them this week. So once I've had a chance to review a few different apps, then I'll do a proper segment on those. But if you have any questions, then pop into the Ravelry group and ask away, or if you have suggestions for apps, then pop them in the episode thread, or send me a private message and I'd love to hear from you. We have an Aussie knit along going on in the group, and there are 43 finished objects already in the finished objects thread, which is fantastic to see. It's much more than I was expecting, and it's great to see that so many people have embraced the idea of exploring Australian yarns and Australian designers. So the knit along or craft along is running until the end of November, so there are 2 weeks to go, which if you're a quick knitter you might still be able to knit a pair of socks or a hat from Aussie yarn or something like that. So I'm sure there'll be a few more entries in there, and I'll do the drawing after the knit along finishes. I have one finished object for the week, which is around my neck. So this shawl doesn't have a name, but I've been talking about it in the last few weeks because it's from the yarn that I spun up recently, and it perhaps looks like any other shawl. It's not entirely spectacular, but I'm happy with it. It has a wonderful drape because of the hand spun. So it's a merino silk blend, or mainly merino, but it had some silk waist, and it's very light. I think it was about 83 grams, which I'm not too sure how many ounces, but I'm sure I'll put it onto the screen. I haven't measured it yet, but it's about 160 centimeters long. I'll see if I can. So I'm really happy with how the yarn actually knit up. I wasn't too sure if the lengths of colour would be long enough, but they seem to have still managed to do quite a few rows with each of the colours. The patterning of my shawl design hasn't come through very well, so I'll see if I can. There you go. Okay, so if you look at from the bottom up, there's some patterning going on. So they're diagonal stripes going across. Part of the reason why they're not showing up so well on this shawl is that I think because of the dark colours and the barber poling in the yarn, and also that I perhaps blocked this out a little bit too fiercely. They were showing up much more before I blocked it, so I'm thinking about giving it another wash and just laying it out to dry rather than blocking it. So I have also been trying it out trying out the pattern in some different yarns. So this is a miniature shawl that I've knit from Miss Click Clack yarn, and you can see the diagonal stripe going down there, and with a little bit more clarity. And this has got a lifeline in it, and I was playing around with the edging. So what I've done is I've actually just gone with a garter edge for that side. I thought about doing lacy patterning, picot edging, and it just wasn't matching with the simple diagonal stripes. I played around with some more solid edging as well, but it turned out that just the garter stitch suited it best. So this has still got a lifeline in it, and I might keep going with that one. But I've also got another one which I've been playing with from Atelier Yarns Pinnacle Base in the frog colourway. So as a single colour, that way is a it's hard to do it backwards. You can see the stripe in there a bit better. So I'm not too sure yet which one of those I'll keep going with, but it's partly to play around with different yarns and see whether or not the needle size matches or works for different types of yarn, and how different colourways affect the pattern. So it's been a bit of play, a few steps forward, a few steps back, playing around with this design. I'm not entirely sure if I will be putting it out there, but I think I will at least end up with a second shawl for myself, and then I'll see if anyone's interested. I have had an offer for test knitting, so thank you. And if anyone else is particularly interested in a pretty much stockinette shawl with a hint of interest, let me know. I am writing up the pattern, and it's a little bit tricky because I've actually got a few different things going on at the same time at different rates with the patterning, so I'm trying to figure out how to write it without confusing everyone. But I expect I'll have it written up this week, and we'll see if anyone's interested. I have made a little bit of progress on my second Saunian sock. So this is a free pattern by Kristen Finlay from Skein Yarn, and I just need to finish this up by the end of November, so that will be done soon. I haven't had any progress on my Arctic texture socks, but I'll get back onto them once I finish the Saunian socks, whichever way I said it, because they don't have to be done until mid-December. But I have been putting a bit of a dent into my sock yarn blanket. I received a lovely package from Melinda, who hosts the Yarnda Woman podcast. She sent me a package of wonderful minis, and I've been putting them into my sock yarn blanket, and I think I've got these right, but I'm sure that if I get them wrong, then somebody will correct me. So this first square, I have actually combined a couple of the minis. So one is from White Birch Fibre Arts Dark Matter, which is this red and black one, and then a bit of Nitpick Stroll Vibrant Violet. And I think this one she used in a cardigan for her niece. And it is incredibly soft. I've heard people talk about Nitpick Stroll saying it's soft, but I had no idea just how soft it was. It was really, really wonderful to knit with, and I'm definitely keen to get myself some. They have a lot of different colours, and I'm not sure I would use them for socks, but I think I'd love to knit a pullover of some sort with it at some point. So those two different minis definitely remind me of Melinda and her colour choices. So I decided to have a row, or part of a row at least, and put all her squares together. This second square, she wasn't sure what these two particular yarns were. One looks like a self-patterning yarn, and then there's a white and light blue. This next square is, and I'm trying to read my notes at the same time, Desert Vista Dye Works Zombody Wants to Drink Your Blood. So it's a zombie colourway, and it's quite fun because it has the solid stripes and then speckled stripes as well. And then this one is my first sparkly yarn. So this is Fibre Nymph Dye Works Rally of Reds, and it has sparkle in it. I'll try to, you can see some of the sparkly bits in there, and that was fun to work with. I've never quite understood the idea of using sparkly yarn, but I can definitely see myself knitting something with sparkle at some point. I think it would make for some very, very special socks, ones that you could wear out and feel incredibly special wearing. This next yellow and purple one is from One Twisted Tree in the Petrichor, excuse me, I'm losing my voice again, One Twisted Tree Petrichor colourway. And then this is the another bit of the light blue and white, which is unknown. So they're all 6 squares from Melinda in a row, and I'll just hang it up from the other way. So this is how big my blanket's getting. And I'm really happy with how much it's grown since I started podcasting. I think being able to show what I'm doing with it each week has spurred me on to keep on adding squares, and also the lovely gifts that people have been sending me. It's making it extra special that it's got both my memories and also their memories embedded into the blanket. So thank you, Melinda, for those wonderful minis. I really appreciate that you sent them to me. She also sent me some wonderful teas, so I'll be drinking those soon. And then my first ever swap. I got a message recently from Sandra from the Craftfulness podcast and from the Craftfulness Etsy shop asking if I wanted to do a swap, and we discussed a project bag and some minis, and then she got a little bit worried when the box hadn't turned up after a few weeks, and it turned out that my silly postman hadn't bothered to leave me a note that it had arrived on the 3rd of November. So I got a note in my mailbox on, I think it was Friday, saying that I had a package to pick up, and if I didn't pick it up soon then they'd be sending it back. But thankfully it wouldn't have been sent back for another week, so they seem to hold on to mail for a couple of weeks and send you a notice in between. So that was very lucky. It would have been very sad for it to go all the way back to the Netherlands after it had travelled all the way here. And I'm incredibly grateful for the kindness and generosity of Sandra. She completely spoiled me and sent way more than what we'd agreed. But I want to show you some of the things. So she sent me a beautiful card which included information about what she'd sent, and she sent some wonderful biscuits. I've already eaten one of those. She sent a huge stack of teas, so I'm looking forward to diving into these. They smell amazing. There's some with licorice and mint and all sorts of things that I can't wait to try. She sent some hand cream, which will come in handy. My hands are always dry. And she sent some buttons, which I thought was fantastic because we hadn't discussed buttons, but I actually sent her some buttons as well. Buttons are always handy. I've got a jar of buttons that I love diving into, and when I was a kid, my grandparents had a drawer which had all sorts of buttons and beads and things that I used to love just playing around in. I'd stick my hands in there and play with them, so I've got a bit of a button obsession. And she sent some wonderful napkins that she had picked up in France with beautiful flowers in them. These are stunning. And then she sent this amazing project bag. So this is a fake suede, and it has a fantastic label. I love the woven labels. You could definitely clip something onto that if you wanted to. A sturdy handle, and then she has a little progress keeper which says made with love, which is very sweet. And then on the inside some more fabric that she has repurposed, and it's a really good size project bag, and I'm looking forward to putting some very special projects in here. It's actually the first ever project bag that I've owned from any other seller. I did buy a little drawstring pouch from Grady & Oz recently, but it's just holding my minis in it. But when I started watching podcasts and realised that project bags were a thing, I just made myself some. And it didn't even occur to me to go and buy from other sellers. And while I've been getting my business set up, I guess I've been putting my funds into things that I can't make, or things that I can that I need more so than things that I can make for myself. So this is going to be a very special project bag, being my first ever project bag from somebody other than me. So thank you, Sandra. It's absolutely beautiful, and the colour is very much my kind of colour, like a rusty orangey colour. Then she also sent some minis, and it's amazing how many there's that many minis. I don't even know quite how many there are in here. She's put fantastic tags which include the name and then which company they're from. So this particular one is one of her own Sandra's Speckles, and it's her new base. And there's some hedgehog fibres in here. There is some drop stable, some Manos del Uruguay, which I've never knit with, which I'm looking forward to. And these are all going to be going into my blanket. And then by the size of these, it looks like I'm going to be able to make all sorts of other fun things with them. So that is way more than a few minis, but thank you, they're going to be fantastic. And then she didn't stop there. She also sent me a full skein of yarn, which I wasn't expecting. I thought that she might send me a couple of minis of her own hand-dyed yarn, but this is some of the yarn that she sells in her shop, and she said that I have to knit something for myself, I have to knit my own socks. It's not allowed to be a gift, so I will make sure that I do that. So this has her Craftfulness tag, and this is the October winter colorway, 75% BFL, 25% nylon. And just last week I was talking about how I wasn't sure how BFL wears as socks when I knit myself a square in my blanket from BFL, so this is going to be absolutely perfect for testing out BFL. And if anyone has any suggestions for sock patterns for this kind of yarn, then please let me know. I'm tempted to just do a vanilla sock just to keep all the colours looking amazing, but if there are other patterns that you would recommend, then please pop them into the episode thread and I'd love to hear about them. So thank you, Sandra. I'm completely blown away, and yeah, it was an experience opening the box and discovering all the amazing things that she had put in there for me. So check out Sandra's podcast. It's Craftfulness on YouTube. She is always working on amazing projects, and she also shows some of the items that she sells in her shop. And in particular, I like the mindfulness section at the end of her podcast, where she encourages a bit of quiet reflection, a bit of slowing down, just to take a moment to think about life, or to switch off your thoughts entirely and yeah, be in the moment. So I really enjoy her podcast. And that's it for this week. It's a bit of a short episode, but with the shawl, I've been knitting backwards and forwards on it a fair bit to work through my ideas, so I haven't had as much progress as in overall knitting as what I've actually had in the work that I've been doing. So if you have any feedback or questions, then please pop over to the Ravelry group or send me a message, and I'm sure that next week I'll have some new socks on the go, even though I need to finish off these gift socks in the near future. And that's it. I will see you soon.